and welcome to the Healing Community Study Learning Collaborative. My name is Lisa Romley, and I'm the Education Program Coordinator for the HEAL study. We are here today to showcase two centers that are really meeting the needs of their community with some great innovative strategies. I just need to review some housekeeping items before we get started. Just a reminder that this session is being recorded today. And if your screen name is not your full name, you're using a partial name or you're using your phone, if you could please update that now to your full name, that just helps when we compare the participants list to the registration list. We are offering CE credits for today's session. One CE credit has been approved for physicians, pharmacists, social workers, nurses, and licensed alcohol and drug counselors. And I'll give you instructions at the end of the session on how to obtain a CE credit. We also offer just a certificate of attendance for anyone that wants that too. We do ask that you stay on mute throughout the session when you're not speaking, and that just helps reduce the echo and extraneous noises. If you have any questions in today's session, and we do welcome your questions, we really want this to be a very interactive session. Please use the raised hand feature, which you'll find on the bottom of the screen if you click on reaction and then click on the raised hand. Or you can type your questions in the chat box and I'll read them sometime during the session. Just to announce that all presenters today have said that they do not have any relevant financial relationships to disclose. And the practice gap that we have identified is advocates for recovery support services in their communities often lack understanding of the financial, social service, and labor resources needed to implement these services. The educational needs that we'll be addressing is understand the appropriate resources needed to provide support services for individuals needing support for long-term recovery and the unstably housed. And our learning objectives today will be discussing best practices when implementing a center, identifying resources needed, and also identifying the examples of activities to integrate for these effective support services. And then we will also be discussing the various roles and responsibility of staff needed to run these centers. So at the end of the session, hopefully you'll be able to describe the resources and finances needed to implement a center that supports the long-term recovery and for the unstably housed. So I am so pleased to welcome our panelists today for today's Learning Collaborative session. I'm going to have them introduce themselves and just give a brief overview of their background, and if they could share with the group what led them to working at their community center. So let me start with Todd, and go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Todd Young, and I was the director at the neighborhood from 2015 to fall of 21. And my background is I suffered from substance abuse in the 70s, early 80s. And when I was able to recover from that, I wanted to help actually teenagers at that time really not go through what I had to go through, or if they were stuck in it, how to get out of it. So that kind of led me down the road to, at-risk populations, and ended up here in Ashland, Kentucky at the neighborhood.
Great, thank you. And go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, I was just blessed to meet Todd Young several years ago. My background is actually, sports marketing and management and ministry. But then when COVID hit, I'd been working with an organization we founded 8 years ago called the Big Idea Camp, which does character development in schools. And when COVID hit, there were a lot of less things for me to get involved with our schools. They weren't open. And so I needed to find a place to serve, and then just knew what Todd was doing at the neighborhood, and was just highly attracted to it because I saw the needs that the facility met and how the leadership was using their influence in relationships with people that were in the margins of life, that had needs in poverty and housing and stability. And so just was highly attracted to that, started to volunteer there and serve there, and turned out just to be something that transitioned into just last fall he passed the baton on of leadership as the director. So love it day to day. Every day's a challenge. Every day's got multiple juggling problems, but man, it's so worth it when you see people grow and succeed.
Yeah, real rewarding. Great, thank you. And then we have Jeremy Bayard I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. Jeremy Byard from the Louisville Recovery Community Connection. I too I kind of came from the private sector. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm a person who was formerly incarcerated. And I started giving back at a treatment center that I went through as a volunteer. And then slowly it worked my way into a job there. They kept asking me if I thought I would want a job. And I kept turning them down, and then something told me to just like follow my heart, not my wallet. And I decided to get a job there, and worked as a part-time employee, and then decided to go full-time, and then traversed my way through the waters, and ended up being able to start the LRCC some years later.
Great, thank you. I'm going to ask the panelists if you could just give a brief history about your center. How did it get started, and was there some type of funding to help get this started? If you could speak about that a little bit, and anyone can start. Go ahead, Todd, maybe.
Yeah, so when I took over, we were probably 6 years into our existence. My position was actually an AmeriCorps Vista position. And I think we had 5 nonprofits at that time. And how we came into existence, when we would give our tours and elevator speech, it's a collaboration between local government, churches, and faith-based organizations and concerned citizens in our community. And that's how it got started. There were nonprofits started talking to each other. Unfortunately, they were spread out throughout our city, and you had to do the same paperwork. You had to tell your story over and over again at every place you went. And they started saying, what if we had a central location for social services, kind of like a mall? And like I said, the local government got behind us. We got some CDBG money. We had a church that gave us a loan that we paid back within the year. And then, they started looking at location, because transportation is so huge a issue for people that are struggling. So that's Jeremy, you got anything to add to that?
I just think the biggest thing for us was the need and the location of others. So if you guys will see photographs in a little bit, but our facility literally houses 8 different nonprofit organizations. We're a mall of charities. And before, if you needed clothing or food or some, utility assistance or some housing needs, you had to travel to one specific place, which was scattered throughout of Ashland.
Right.
And so it just made more sense to have a collaborative effort. And so that's what the neighborhood actually is. We are a mall of charitable organizations under one roof, so that we can work together to meet the needs and get people back into different programming and recovery and stability.
Yeah. And we have a central database now. So before you would have had to fill out paperwork, and then, maybe told your story. I've got a young lady that's very close to me, to even talk about what's happened to her and what was done to her. Still to this day, I met her when she was 12, kind of gives her anxiety. But, back before we did this, a man might have been asking that young lady, how'd you get here? And she would have lied to him anyway. But just that over and over again, is not good for the people that we're trying to help. So we now have a charity tracker. You get a card when you come into our facility, and you're asked once, and then You don't have to fill any of the paperwork back out. You can utilize everything that we've got. And if you're a woman, the woman is asking you questions. You're not telling your story or to anybody. We match males and females up, or males and males, females and females up. So again, it's a one-time deal. And then we know when you're in the building, we track all of that stuff, how many services that we have been given to you. So we can ask now the appropriate questions.
Right.
Okay, why are we giving Uncle Sid utility assistance for 10 years? And maybe we can hook them up with something like Frontier Housing or something that comes in and does rehab work and puts proper insulation in the house, so we don't have to give that assistance anymore. So it's helped us to start asking the right questions.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And Jeremy Bayard?
Yeah. Ironically, that was kind of similar in a way. Is I was working at a treatment center, and I was actually kind of heading up the supported employment division at this nonprofit, and I kept running into very similar kind of barriers of, hey, we're having to run from here to here, and transportation is a huge barrier, and we're duplicating all of the same paperwork. And I said, wouldn't it be great if we had a nonprofit mall? That was the exact words I used. I lit up when you all said that, Jeremy and Todd. And I was in a meeting, and a woman said, hey, I know of a property downtown that just came available that I think you should look at. And I said, oh, it's just an idea. I don't have any money to back this up or anything like that. And she said, why don't you just go look at it, Jeremy? I said, okay, I'll go look at it. And I looked at it and I said, oh man, this would be a great place to start. And I took the idea and I took pictures and I took it back to the agency organization that I was working with, and they loved the idea. And then, the big question, okay, well, how are you gonna pay for that? I said, I don't know. I was hoping I would just have the idea and you would have the answer to that question. And of course they laughed. And so we kind of just, put it over on the shelf and said, great idea. Let's just keep thinking. And then a couple weeks later, actually, a notice of funding came out through the Kentucky Opioid Response Effort for recovery community centers. And that came across my desk, and I said, hey, this might not be a nonprofit mall, but this could be where we kind of start. And we need one of these in our community anyway. And so we wrote for a grant, and I spoke with my agency and said, hey, if we write for this, this kind of needs to be independent from your organization, from our organization. And the idea will be that we'll write for it and get a 501c3, separate 501c3 for the community center itself. And it'll be its own entity. That way it can be the communities and not, attached to the treatment center. And they saw the vision, said, okay, and we did that. And eventually we did get our own designation of 501c3. And what we did was in the back, we kind of have a little small nonprofit incubator, if you will. We rent offices out to about 4 or 5 other organizations right now that are nonprofits that have similar missions, who are aligned in the same way. And hopefully, we can get some more offices in the building or satellite offices in the future, and be able to eliminate even more barriers.
Great. Thank you. And as I go on with the pictures, I do want to stop here and say I have the long name for the Louisville Recovery Center. It's called the Louisville Recovery Community Connection. And I apologize to Jeremy and making that air there. I didn't realize that till just a little while ago. So, but I did want to let everybody in the room know that that's what the correct name. So a few weeks ago, I got to visit both of these centers and was so impressed with both places and the services that they're offering for their community. And I did take some pictures, so I want to share with the group and have the panelists speak about their services. So let me move to the next slide here. So accessing your center, it sometimes is I wanted to know, and I'm sure the group does here too, is there a registration process? Do you track that, and of like who's using your services and what they're using them for? How do they know about your center? Is there some type of advertisement, or is it word of mouth? And so if you could speak to those questions, and we could start with the neighborhood, how does that process work?
So I like, the piece of paper that you have there. We are very strategic on a few things. And so that neighborhood card, it's an identification card. I mean, it's not a state ID card, but it is a local. Matter of fact, our local bus stops now actually use that for one of their cards. So the neighborhood card's picture ID, and they've got to have some proof of ID to get that card. But one of our main nonprofits in our facility, CARES, Community Assistance Referral Services, helps you get your ID cards if you need it. And one of the reasons why we really want you to have these cards. Now, first of all, we will give you every service you ever need if you don't have that card. So it's not you have to have it. We just want you to have it. And we'll do that free services for 30 days for sure, even without that card. But we've actually found that just keeping this card is one way to promote some accountability. It is definitely a way, to say, hey, we want you to be responsible, and this is just a simple way of doing it. But on the backside for us, it helps us be accountable. It helps us track things. I know right now that in 2021, we had 31,000 people check into the facility over the year. And of those 31,000 people, we can track how many services, and it was over 38,000 different services provided. Anything from clothing to showers to haircuts to utility assistance, all the things that are offered in our facility, but we can track that. And tracking that helps us find out financially where are we spending our money, because we get a lot of shirts, sweatshirts, blankets donated, but what we don't get donated is socks and underwear. Obviously, I don't know about wearing used underwear. Not a big fan of that idea, but we'll spend money on it and we'll see, okay, well, we spent this much money on sweaters. Maybe we don't need to do that because we're getting so many donated. And so this card, what happens when they have it, when they go to, say, the dressing room or clothing closet, they barcode it. They scan the card and scan what assistance they're getting. So that way we can Excel sheet it, document it, find out what's coming in, what's going out, what we may need to track more of. And it's the same way with our kitchen, same way with our referral assistances. And so this card has just been a proper way to measure. And it's hard to set goals and obtain goals if you have no legit way of measuring. And so it's been good for us, and it's been just good for the clients.
Mhm. Again, helps us ask the right questions. I can speak to the socks and underwear. When I was there, we were spending a lot of money, but we were also seeing that we had clients that we had gotten housed. And why am I giving this certain client brand new underwear and socks every week, and also handing them a box of Tide or whatever? And we were able to tell that person, can you wash your socks and underwear in the bathtub? And with the detergent we're giving, he goes, oh, I never thought of that, and then it also showed us, we hooked up with Walmart, and now we don't buy socks and underwear because it's a nonprofit organization that they work with. And we haven't bought socks and underwear in several years. So it just shows that helped us see the data that we needed to see to ask.
Yeah, there's a really good question. Stephanie Owen asked, do you get any client pushback or hesitancy with the tracking system? The other thing that I didn't even address, I probably even should have, is when you measure things, you can apply for grants with your data. And so we are capable of giving what we give because we can show our partners and our sponsors this is the need. And so, I don't think we really have any pushback from the clients. I think they have the appreciation of it. And I will tell you this, we actually have policies now that if you lose your card? What do you do if you lose your card? So, I mean, there is a price on the card, not to the clients, but we do pay to have the card maker, the card stock itself. And so what we ask is, hey, if you lose your card in the year's time, you have 30 days. And the price to get a new card is actually, you have to volunteer 2 hours at one of the agencies here. And that may be in the kitchen, that may be helping sort clothes at the dressing room. But I would say that maybe if there is a pushback, it is oh man, you got to make me work here. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
because in 2021, we gave $3.5 million of services out. And so we need to make sure that we have that working relationship. So that's about the only pushback that I know we get.
And again, it helps us add accountability in. So if you don't have your IDs, you don't have, we give you 4 weeks to accomplish that. If you come back in the 4th week and you've done 4 of the 5 things we ask you to do, we extend that temporary card. But if you've done nothing, we don't give you that card, and then we do refuse services. And again, it's just adding that dignity and that accountability. And then we high five them when they get it done, but we really try to get people to be accountable for what we're asking them to do. And that goes a long way when they start to get, go for employment. I will tell you too, that most of our card, if you don't have your ID, a lot of the places that hire the clients that we work with will accept our ID card because they realize we have all that. We have, better data than, and so they'll accept that and get them hired with that, knowing that we are working to get their driver's license or state ID or whatever they need for tax purposes for the employer. So it's been good for the whole community.
That's great. A question came in, and it came in more directly just to me. So what, do you use a particular software for your tracking at all?
Yeah, it's called Charity Tracker, is actually the name of the company, Charity Tracker. And it's very customizable. You can set your parameters for what services are provided, what data you want to obtain. Matter of fact, it's getting to the point now where if there's something happening locally with police officers, they come to us. Hey, what information can you give to us about these people? Where can we help find them? Or now we're trying to work with, even with our local coroner. He said, can you help track the next of kin? Which is something we haven't been doing. And so that was a recommendation just from our local elected officials of, can you help us with that just in case? Which I thought that was a pretty good idea.
And, it's a barcode system. It was really, we're like every other nonprofit. We, finances are tough, but the barcoders were $100. You check in when you come into the building. COVID kind of forced that. I worked for 3 or 4 years to try to get a receptionist, kind of like in the mall, you are here. And we've got that now. We were able to hire to that, but they barcode the card when they come in, so we know exactly who's in the building. And like Jeremy said, we get calls from the State Highway Patrol asking for missing persons, and we can say, Jeremy was in the building 3 days ago. He got a hooded sweatshirt and he ate breakfast, but we haven't seen him since then. So that's just how good a data we have.
That's awesome. Yeah. Jeremy, how about the LRCC?
Yeah, so we do have a formal kind of intake system. We have a kiosk when you walk in that you can kind of self-service, or there's a receptionist there that will help you kind of navigate the system. It can also be utilized from an organization, digitally over the web. So it's a cloud-based system called Recovery Link. And so if anybody's doing a referral from across town or wants to do a self-referral from their phone, from their tablet, from their computer, anywhere that they have access to the internet, they can do a self-referral, or somebody can refer somebody from another agency just through our kiosk portal. And we do give that information out to, different agencies that are in the area that work, whether that's recovery residences, whether that's, detox or residential programs, transitional living, the shelters, different places all have, a flyer with that information to where they can get onto our kiosk, portal and get people in and do a brief intake. And then from there, that system will send our supervisors an email and let somebody know that somebody's in the system, and then they can call that person, set up an appointment, or that person can just drop in. Anybody can just drop in during our drop-in hours. But before they come in, they'll do a brief intake, and then they'll be kind of navigated to the appropriate staff, depending on what kind of services they want or need at the time, or if they're just there to use the computer lab, or just there to kind of charge their phone and have a safe space, or just need someone to talk to for a moment, or just kind of get out of the elements. They're able to do that too, but they do get into the system, and then from there they're also able to have their own participant profile, to where they our system is kind of, it's called we call it an ERR, an electronic recovery record. So there's all kinds of, BARC 10, the brief assessment of recovery capital assessment that's built in there, the 8 dimensions of wellness, recovery planning and goal setting, and all the referrals and everything is kept longitudinal, historical data. So everything is up to date, and that person has their own participant profile that they can get into once they've verified an email address, if they have an email address. If they don't have an email address, we can set them up with one. But then they can remote anywhere that they have access to, the internet, from their phone, tablet, or computer. They can get in and see their goals, and we have data transparency in that regard of, it's your data, not ours. And a lot of times people need that for recovery court, or need some proof for their PO, or their parole officer, probation officer, or other services they might be receiving elsewhere in the city or state. And so they have access to everything they have. Or they might just say, hey, I can't remember what some of those tasks were on my SMART goals for some of the goals that I set last time. And instead of trying to carry around a piece of paper, we do live in a digital age, and a lot of people do have access to that. And some don't. And we will, obviously print off papers for individuals, or there are some individuals that opt out of having that kind of participant portal. But that's one way that we kind of stay connected. And we do advertise, have a little bit of a presence on social media, get out there, boots on the ground. We do have some mobile units that go out into the community, whether that's, help supporting the syringe exchange programs, or going into the houseless encampments throughout town, or just popping up in kind of the, different neighborhoods that we service. We will get word of mouth out that way, or get, flyers out that way. But word of mouth is our biggest kind of encatchment, if you will. A lot of people just, hey, you should go to the LRCC, or have you talked to Jeremy, or have you, and so I will say that word of mouth, travels fast in the encampments and in the communities when someone gets a need met. I think there's been so much siloism, if you will, in these kind of spaces for so long, or that when people see something working efficiently or get a need met very quickly, word of mouth travels very fast. Hey, yeah, you can get this here, you can do that there, and no, it's no barrier. They're really nice over there. Things like that really get the word traveling pretty fast.
Yeah, that's great. A question came in the chat box here. Do you update your questions in that registration process at all, or?
Yeah. And so that's a great question. If there's several agencies, this is why it's so important. Since there are several agencies that use this same data tracking, at what point do you get all the information from the participants, and how often do you update the questions so they're what the agencies need and nothing else? 7 of 8 of the agencies that utilize our facility are more what I would call stability giving resources: food, clothing, showers, haircuts, and assistance like that. Whereas we have one that goes a lot deeper, when they get the identification cards, your birth certificate, or even caseworkers, that they have multiple schedules with, and utility assistance, and that's CARES. They go a lot deeper in the program that we use, CARES obviously goes layers and layers and layers deeper. They have lockable folders and password protected from their login that the other agencies don't. And then they have software themselves for their record keeping. We have to have firewall protections. It's a HIPAA law. So we have to have firewall protection just for their agency at our facility. So not everybody has access to the data from that specific agency because of the questions they need to ask. To be honest, the people that are handing out the clothing and the showers, their job isn't to know all that deep detail. Their job is to, hey, we love you. I don't care how messy or dirty you are. Come in, use what you need, and we're going to give you what you need and pat you on the back and say thanks for being here.
Yeah. And the cards are updated annually by the clients. They know when to come in. So
Yeah.
that's another thing. And I want you guys to understand when I started in 15, I saw clipboards. We were still tracking, and we had Charity Tracker. CARES ran it, but we would have them sign in for dinner, or we would have them sign in for a shower. And there was personal information on clipboards that none of us in this call would ever put down. And then it went over to my great volunteers, but they were all elderly ladies. When I got there, we had floppy disks still. Okay. And then we were 6 or 8 months behind on data entry, and it wasn't accurate. And people were saying, well, we're just going to skip those 3 months. Charity Trackers, when I left, was around $365 a year for like the top of the line. And what I started doing was getting other, like the food bank at the House of Grace Church. They wanted to start tracking people. So we paid for Charity Tracker there. Shelter of Hope had Charity Tracker. So again, and I tried to get like other missions and stuff to buy into it, because if you were 2 miles across the city and I had all your data and you had Charity Tracker, you could access that. I could allow you to access that to print off their Social Security card or whatever it was, that you needed. It just streamlined things for not only us, but the clients.
Sure.
And that's who we're interested in.
Great. And Jeremy, do you have anything to add with the LRCC in regards to that question about information or changing questions at all?
Yeah, we have the ability to change questions and kind of customize some things on the back end as far as questions go. But yeah, our system, it's built, for recovery, supports, and it was built by people in recovery and by people who started recovery community organizations. So with really looking at what we ask and what we track, there's some things that I think intuitively our coaches and our supervisors kind of might ask in a session, but there's usually a place to capture that, whether in narrative or some sort of kind of drop down or other box. So a lot of the things that we ask that we need for any kind of data reporting or for our own needs for referrals and things of that nature is it's baked in the sauce there somewhere. We have the ability to collect about 1,800 different data points in our system. It's just a matter of where it goes. But on the initial intake, occasionally we did add a couple of components recently that we weren't asking about, some like criminal justice involvement. We wanted to start asking about that from the get-go. That way we could get people to maybe a more appropriate coach or team member. But yeah, we do have the ability to do that. But most of the time, for the intake purposes, we know what we're going to need, and we know what other agencies are going to need for referrals. And so it's for the most part stayed the same. Like I said, we've added a couple questions here and there. I mean, we did add, some different COVID questions and consent questions there at the beginning of our intake that are now just standard. Hopefully we can take the COVID questions off here sometime soon, but
Yeah.
yeah, but no, I'm quarantined right now with COVID, so we're still going to be asking them.
All right, well, let me move on here to the LRCC. In your kind of your lobby area, as soon as you walk in, you see this big calendar of all these activities. So Jeremy, can you explain how all the activities and the meetings and the recovery coaching, all those that you do throughout the month that you host at your center?
Sure, and I'm probably gonna forget a whole host of them. We support, about, I think there's about 17, support group mutual aid meetings that happen on a weekly basis. And that ranges from, AA meetings to, sex and love addiction anonymous meetings to all the different mutual aid. There's just, MARA, medicated assisted recovery anonymous. There's, harm reduction works, harm reduction, that's a harm reduction lens. There's smart recovery meetings that happen, just a whole host of different type of mutual aid meetings that go on. And we do have the one-on-one recovery coaching. We've kicked back up now that some of the COVID restrictions have started to kind of loosen. We are starting to do more of our, have some art activities that we do, where we're bringing local artists who will come in and volunteer their time, or sometimes we're even able to pay them an honorarium if we can, and get them to come in and do an art activity and somehow tie that into some sort of recovery theme. We allow multiple agencies to come in and use our boardroom or our training room. People host their own board meetings there, or different kind of committee meetings. And that kind of varies week to week, month to month, depending on what community needs. And then sometimes people will say, hey, can we host my kid's birthday party? We don't have we can't find a place, or the places are way too expensive. And oftentimes those are people in recovery that have utilized the center for one thing or another, or sometimes they're not always in recovery. But what we do know is we open our doors and we say yes a lot. And we know that mental illness and addiction and recovery have touched just about every life, every person in Kentucky, one way or another, probably in this nation, one way or another, indirectly or directly. And so being able to build that relationship, that's part of our strategic plan, or our mission is to build relationships. And from those relationships, we know that a lot of other things will follow. And so just being able to build those relationships and allow people to come in and utilize our space, and most of the time utilize it for free, is a big part of what we do. And so there's a whole host of things, open mic nights, life skills groups. We try to partner with other organizations and have them, if they do something, would you like to do it over here? Kentuckiana Works, they have a nice resume building workshop that they do. And then they also, do some soft skills groups and plug people into employment. And so they come over once a week and we'll work with individuals every Tuesday afternoon. And then from there, they'll set up an appointment with one of our coaches to enhance their resume or continue that job search, or we'll work on how are we going to get you to these job interviews, whether it's us getting you bus passes or getting you set up with some other form of transportation. But there's just a whole host of different activities that go on a daily there.
That's awesome.
And I could, yeah.
No, I mean, because that's true, the true meaning of a community center, meeting the needs of the community and what they need. So that is so impressive. And when I visited both of the centers, I noticed that both of you have billiards table in your gathering space area. besides being an activity that people just enjoy doing, what is the benefit of having, a pool table? And go ahead, the neighborhood, you could start.
So that pool table, which I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little bit more jealous of Jeremy's, because that looks like an upscale hotel that I
Yeah.
want to stay at. Ours is a part of our tailored program, and that's through Pathways. And so ours is in a center specifically for 14 to 26-year-olds. It is a place to belong, a place to be encouraged. They have specific caseworkers just for that age, and it's specific. But he just said something earlier, it reminded me about, if you want to see change, if you want to see healing, if you want to see growth, the truth is it takes a investment of relationship first. It
Yes.
can't just be formal. Here, listen, here's your book, read it, good luck, pat you on the butt, good game, out the door. No, it has to be invested. And I was thinking, not a lot of people read the back of a box of toothpaste. This is a weird analogy, but I use it with my 10-year-old. On the box of toothpaste, on the very back, you have an active ingredient and inactive ingredient. And the active ingredient in toothpaste, we all know this because we're all scared of the dentist, is fluoride. But the truth is fluoride tastes terrible. So the inactive ingredient is the bubblegum flavor. It takes the bubblegum flavor to get my 10-year-old to have toothpaste in his mouth for 3 minutes. The active ingredient in growth is the effort. It's what it takes for healing. The inactive is relationships. We have to have those relationships for the growth to happen. And so what do? You want to throw around some conversational opportunities. So that's why pool tables matter. That's why TV screens matter. That's why you want to make a living room setting, because that's where the talks happen. It can't just be so formal that it feels like they're at a doctor's appointment when they walk through the door. And that's, again, I would love to sneak around my building and hide from meetings and play pool. As a matter of fact, I try it often, but I love it. I look at theirs and I'm thinking, gee, golly, wow, I would love to be right there. But yeah, that's for us. A pool table, as fun as it is a purpose tool for engagement.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. And Jeremy at the LRCC?
Yeah, I mean, that was a beautiful analogy, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that's what it is. It's being a retired hairstylist and barber. I say that's kind of like our barbershop talks. Like, people congregate around the pool table, or every once in a while there might be somebody that's just kind of over by their lonesome, and me or somebody else, will kind of pick up on that and say, hey, you want to shoot a game of pool? And this person might have been coming in, but very kind of shy, or who knows what's going on with that individual. And oftentimes around that pool table, that's where some trust and camaraderie is built, and those conversations happen. It also is good for, oftentimes people bring in kids or teenagers with them, because we are family friendly. And so it's another activity for, hey, why don't you go shoot a game of pool with while mom or dad speaks with someone or what have you. And so it's also family friendly in that regard. And then before and after the meetings, a lot of the mutual aid meetings, there's usually a group of fellas or even some ladies that love to shoot pool and will come in before or after a meeting, and they'll help clean up, and they'll help make coffee, and they'll help do those things. But they also, come and, hey, we want to come early and shoot a couple games of pool before the meeting. And so it has, multi-purpose there at the LRCC. And, it's also a good, it's good for us employees every once in a while. I might not play a full game, but there's times where I'll go rack the balls and break them up really really hard, and get a little energy shift there, and shoot a couple, and just kind of get a break for a second. So employees get to use it. Kids get to use it, and really some really fruitful conversations have taken place around that pool table. It's almost like sacred ground, if you will.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, when I was visiting at the LRCC, I was speaking with one of the peer support specialists, and she said this is a great way to engage conversation because they're not ready for that direct eye contact. So you're playing an activity that's a great way to start a conversation. I thought, how useful that is too, and what a benefit to so many people. Right. So Jeremy, you also at the neighborhood have some services for those that are food insecure. Tell us about the River City Harvest and the Ashland Community Kitchen.
Sure. So River City's Harvest, food recycling, if you will, food that has an expiration date from Walmart, Kroger, multiple stores in our region. We'll send out box trucks and bring it back to River City's Harvest. Weigh it by its category. Is it dairy? Is it produce? Is it meat? Is it, even beverages? They all have shelf lives in bakery. And so what they do, they weigh it in their individual categories. And then we have right now 33 different local food pantries that we divided evenly amongst those food pantries and send it back out to those. I don't know what the specific date is for how many days it has left when we get it. I don't know if we get it after. I don't think we get it after it expires. It's still got shelf life that they give it to us. But then we get it out to the food pantries and they give it out that day. So really River City's Harvest is a very intentional hub to get in food and then get it out the same day, which is very magical. 2020, they did over 1 million pounds of food. And I know last year it was right over 800,000 in 2021. Whereas on the flip, and let me just say this, they don't really have day-to-day interactions with clients at our facility as much as they do with the external food pantries and facing hunger.
Yeah. Oh, and let me stop you right there. Just another thing about Charity Tracker is we assign our clients food pantries that are located in their area where they live. So it does a couple things. It doesn't overwhelm the food pantry that maybe, the older ladies at the church are cooking homemade cookies and everybody wants to go there. So you're assigned a food pantry in your area, and we track all that again through Charity Tracker. So it evens things out and, helps us just track our population and where they're living too. So.
And then the Ashland Community Kitchen is the flip side. That is our soup kitchen, if you will. Very rarely do we have soup, but I mean, with 3 meals a day, Monday through Friday, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that, I mean, I'm just gonna be honest, it's got warmer in the last 2 weeks. I noticed yesterday 100 people for breakfast. It shocked me. Normally, you can see an easy 30, but when I saw 100 people there, and again, in Bowie County, Kentucky, we only have 45,000 people in our county, and to see that numbers, it's transient time. First of summer, in the fall, we're going to see a lot of people coming in and out. But Ashland Community Kitchen does an extremely incredible job providing meals, daily meals, and so that's the difference of the two.
Yeah, and at Ashland Community Kitchen, they sit down, right? And eat.
Yeah, it's full
Right,
cafe.
yeah.
I mean, think of a school lunch. You walk through, you get your tray, sit down, then go put it in the cleaning department.
Right.
The tray return.
And anyone can come from the community. You don't check.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
None of our services are geared toward finance. So anybody can come and use our facility. You could come in and get a card and use all the services offered there.
Okay. And can someone come up to the River City Harvest, like an individual, and get some groceries, or how does that work?
No.
No.
No, they
Okay.
have to be registered through the Facing Hunger program.
Okay. Okay.
I will say that in a partnership, Ashland Community Kitchen does have a food pantry there on site. And
Okay.
one of the things that we do strategically there, they will make emergency food boxes. And so if there is a family, for example, we'll partner with the American Red Cross. If there is a house that burns down or a family just in that emergency scenario, we can get you covered for a day to 3 days, no question. But it's not neither. Well, the River City Harvest is definitely not a place just for individual, services compared to food pantry as a whole.
And the local faith-based organizations will call us because they'll know people that, had something happen, or they've got a family that just come in and, again, you don't come and not get what you've come for.
Right, right.
At the neighborhood. So,
That's great. And to keep that kitchen going, the Ashland Kitchen, do they receive grant funding, or
Sure.
how do they keep that going?
All right, so let's get in the fun part too. This is the not so pretty part, because we could sell you on this, but the truth is we have 8 organizations in our facility, but they're 8 separate organizations, 8 different nonprofit organizations
with boards,
with measurable goals, with direction, with vision of their own. And so we do work together, but then, they go for grants. And I think the harder part of that too is the other 7 are probably going for the same grant money because we're such a small community. So that, yes, they do get a lot of help. And I think anytime with food, the food seems to be doing great. River Cities Harvest and Community Kitchen, as far as getting the larger charitable donations and even grants from our city organizations as well. But yeah, everyone, that's the part. If everyone in this room, that's watching this thing, if you're a part of an organization, how competitive it is in this world to get good grants. So you want a good grant writer.
So, and I'll give you, for instance, then COVID, because I was still there. Between the 2 that we see, and River Cities Harvest was initially started by an Ashland Oil citizen that was concerned because they wanted to feed the community kitchen, which when I ran the kitchen too, we were their biggest client, so to speak. So we got food in and it come right across the hallway to me. Now some dynamics have changed there a little bit. But during COVID, both of these organizations, within just a few months, they were overflowing with, we couldn't get rid of the food, and they were monetarily had received about $100,000 each. And then I had a business that I dealt with, a company I dealt with and built relations, and they called me and wanted to give a substantial amount of money to the kitchen in River Cities Harvest. And I said, hey, I went to the directors. I said, you guys are busting at the seam. Can I get this for operations? Because we were tanking, all our volunteers quit for Marathon and the big hospitals. And we needed it for operations. Unfortunately, this 2 companies said, we never thought of that. We're going to send you the money, do with it what you want to do. So those are some of the struggles that you run in with. If I started the neighborhood right now, I would put it under one umbrella, and one board. You could make decisions faster. And Jeremy spoke to it earlier about silos. It's really easy to get the wrong person in there that doesn't see the big picture, where silos start to be built. So that's a constant struggle for the neighborhood.
Yeah, interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Also at the neighborhood, that people with substance use disorders and those unstably housed really are at risk, for losing their sense of dignity. And you've got services here that maintain and build that sense of dignity. Talk about your shower, barber, and dressing room services. How does that work?
Great. The picture on the left and the picture in the middle, that is our Clean Start initiative. So they have showers, the barber station, the beauty shop. The director is actually a licensed beautician. Her name's Anna. She does a great job. And another part of this is, and I think maybe there's a picture in a little bit, but is mailboxes. We give temporary mailboxes, which again, let's get back to this, and we'll connect it together. What is our goal for our clients? And for me, the ultimate measure of success is how many people don't have to come back.
Yeah.
How many people can we move to a healthier position in life? And so now this is why some of the agencies exist. So if we can get you nice, clean, put some dignity back into this thing we call charity, clean, get you some clothes, give you an address, because a lot of parts of applications is where can we mail to you? And so now we're going to give you a place for that to go, some clothing, maybe even we have suits and nice, business attire. Now you're ready for a job interview. And that to me that's the health of it. Doesn't look sexy on a grant application when your numbers go down. A lot of agencies are, well, we serve this many people, this many meals. We want the biggest numbers ever. To me, that's actually not what I want. I want to see our numbers to drop because we've helped them get to where they can self-sustain, be healthy in that atmosphere. And so again, I measure success by how many people do we help not have to come back, rather than, Todd introduced me 2 years ago to the book called Toxic Charity. If you give once, they appreciate it. Give twice, they start to anticipate it, start to expect it. And by the fifth time of giving the same service over and over, they are now dependent. I've watched people walk into our facility with their heads up and chins up saying, this is incredible. Look at everything you guys do. Wow, wow, wow. And a month later, when they're coming back every 2 days, their eyes are now looking at the floor because they are ashamed that they have to be there. And I hate that. I hate it. Sometimes when you give so much, you actually take dignity. And I think there's just a different way of doing charity to where there's no upper levels. We're just going to walk beside you as you get healthy. And that's what we're here to do. We can find out ways to get you what you need with a shower, with a haircut, with clothing, with food. But man, we are going to celebrate when you win, and we're going to be your biggest cheerleaders. I don't want you here because you need our quote unquote product. I want you here because we're getting better as people and healthier.
Yeah, I took a picture of Jeremy's LRCC probably behind the reception desk, which it said engage, encourage, and empower. And to me, there's flow to that. And we kind of look at it like a triage, hospital, and recovery. So if you look at both of those statements, in triage, you only spend a little bit of time there and you're moving to the hospital, and depending where you're at, how much you need that hospital, but you're not going to live at the hospital either. And then, to move it out into rehab. So now you're being empowered, and we're just kind of pushing you because you're healed now. You've gotten through this, and that we want to flow like a river, not for them to come and here's the swamp, and this is where you're going to stay the rest of your life. So that's kind of how that's our focus for the neighborhood, as this is a tool to move you, not to keep you.
Yep.
Great analogy there. That's wonderful. Great services, though. Was really impressed that you're able to offer that. At the LRCC, Jeremy, you have a number of meeting spaces that I think are uniquely meeting the needs of individuals and particular sessions. Can you talk about these spaces and what you offer to community members?
Yeah, sure. So that first space you see on the left is, our meditation room. And so there's some meetings that take place in there. Sometimes that looks like one-on-one meetings with, sponsor relationships. A lot of people that are have some sort of working knowledge of 12-step recovery. A lot of fourth and fifth steps get performed, if you will, in that area, and that's where individuals kind of do an inventory of themselves and then kind of tell that to another person, and so that's kind of a sacred process in 12-step recovery. And so that room there has heard a lot of people's secrets that they thought they were taking to the grave, but through recovery have seen fit to air those in that room with their sponsor and their higher power, if you will. And so we also have like Dharma Recovery is going to be restarting here in June, I believe. Their meetings in there where that's a Buddhist kind of centric recovery support group meeting that happens in there, and we'll do meditation groups in there, sometimes impromptu, sometimes scheduled, and then individuals sometimes just want to go back there and take a break, and they can't sleep in there, obviously. We monitor that, but they can go in there and they can meditate, or they can just kind of have a quiet place that they can just kind of collect their thoughts, or sometimes there's people that go in there, and we have some musicians that that want to come and just have a private place to play their guitar or play their harmonica, or what have you. And so they'll go back there, and that's their form of meditation, and then that's okay. In the middle there, that's our training room. We have a couple whiteboards and the TV there, and those tables will move around, and you can configure the room however you want. I mean, the room gets configured in many different ways. Sometimes that room turns into a yoga studio. Sometimes it's an art studio. Sometimes it's training, and sometimes it even turns into a buffet line, because that sits behind our kind of living room, which is next to our kitchen. And so sometimes that's the workflow, if you will, of some of the events that we might have. It's been a mocktail bar room setting before. A multi-purpose training room there. But yeah, other agencies come in and use that for training. Hazelden Bedford's been in there and trained, different clinicians, peers, different things like that. Other organizations come in and will just utilize that as a board room area or a training area for their employees, do a team building exercise throughout our various rooms and things of that nature. And then that last room, you see that's our board room. And so a lot of individuals we use that for trainings too as well. And on the other side, there is, glass walls that have kind of frosting on them that they kind of, that it's privacy from when people walk into the center, they don't see straight into the boardroom, but B, they're big whiteboards as well. So, we use that for a lot of our trainings, and we can, tap in, digitally with that TV on the wall. We have speakers and microphones that we can have in the middle of the boardroom there, and so everyone can hear and speak to anyone that's on Zoom or digitally. And a lot of support group meetings that are maybe smaller support group meetings will meet in there, or there might be some private meetings. There's some LGBTQIA meetings and the Sex and Love Addiction Anonymous meetings that want a little bit more privacy and a little bit more intimacy. They will meet in this room as well. And then we have our team meetings in there as well. It's right now, well, until yesterday, we finally got our kids room, our kids zone remodeled from a water damage that had happened. That was a makeshift kids room for a while as well. We're very adaptable at the LRCC. We kind of, whatever's needed for that day, we will kind of, turn different rooms into different spaces as needed.
Great. It's so great that the way you're meeting the needs of the community. That's awesome. And then also, let me get, whoops.
And I really like,
go ahead. No, sorry.
I was just going to say before I forgot, I really liked what Jeremy and Todd were talking about earlier, is like something that I kind of tell people in training, and I remind people throughout our team meetings, that our job is to work ourselves out of a job. Amen. With individuals, right? So moving to a self-sustaining, model with individuals, they do need our help now. Everyone needs help. But that's our job, is to work ourselves out of a job. And it's just so great when people come back, when you haven't seen somebody for a while that you've been helping for a while, there's always a, man, I wonder what's going on right now. But then they pop in, and we're always glad to see them no matter what's happened. But it's just so great when they say, hey, that, got that job that you all helped me get, and from there I've gotten the list of things that have happened in their life. And so it's great, just trying to work ourselves out of a job, so to speak.
Rewarding, for sure. Yeah. And then you also have this place that's called Innovation Station. What do you do here with the computer and printer, and how does that benefit people?
Yeah, so we have those two rooms there, and now they have much more art on the wall now.
Yeah.
That was something we were working on, getting some walls painted and getting some more art on the wall and stuff. That just works. People can come in and use the computer. We do ask people, we try to keep it to a timed limit of a couple hours per day per person. We were kind of really open with it, but there, people were kind of camping out on some of the computers and working on resumes, job searching, getting documents in order to be able to get your ID or things like that are always going to take precedent in the computer lab. But we also don't want to be so stringent or so kind of in the box where people can't get on Facebook and connect with loved ones or do things that they want to do. Every once in a while, play a video game or what have you. As long as it's appropriate material that they're working on or reading or looking at, we're okay with it. But what we don't want is somebody in there playing a video game while somebody else might be needing to work on a resume. But we do have 5 now computers. One broke the other day. We'll get that fixed, but we do have 5 right now operating computers and then the printer there. And so printing is kind of limited. You have to get permission from us to print something. So we were having people that were just printing books, literal books out of there. And so we did have to kind of make some new policies and procedures. And how that works is you come in and say, hey, I want to use the computer lab. You check out we have wireless keyboard and mouse. I don't know how, never knew the plural of that, if it's still mice when it comes to the computer equipment or not. But you'll check out your mouse and your keyboard, and somebody will kind of take you in there and run over the expectations of the room, not having food or drink near the computers and the other policies of the room, and being cognizant that there's other people there and stuff like that, being quiet and respectful and stuff like that. So they'll go over that, and then you'll check that back in or check it out. And we'll just kind of go through and kind of like when you rent a car, you see what the condition was like when you got it, and then they kind of check it out when you get it. So we've kind of had to move to that just from some of the needs or some of the behaviors and things that we were running into. So you check in and out of the computer lab, and sometimes that's maybe not why you're there. Maybe just, hey, you're working with a coach, and then we say, hey, would you like to work on your resume? And we might move over into the computer lab with an individual. And so we always have a computer in the other room there. That's kind of a quiet lounge. And then we have like these little like you might see in university libraries, these chairs that kind of have these really tall kind of walls that are a little bit more private and more cushiony. And so people can sit there. Sometimes we have students. We're not far from many many of the universities and colleges here, whether it's Spalding or U of L or a couple of the other universities and colleges that are downtown here. Simmons College is not far away, and so the seminaries are not far away either. And so students that are in recovery or sometimes students that are volunteering might come down and utilize that space and work on homework or just, people might do step work or anything in there. And so, yeah, we try to utilize that space as much as possible.
If someone needed help with like a job application or a resume, is there somebody on staff that could help them? Sorry, I know you're coughing.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm doing my best today.
You're doing great.
Yeah, thanks. Yes. So people can go in there and utilize the computer lab, by themselves, but oftentimes, that there is multiple people on staff who can help them navigate with the, and kind of collaboratively do those things in the computer lab or, in our private offices. But oftentimes that's what will happen is we'll be collaborating with somebody, and then, oftentimes, hey, somebody say, oh, I can finish this, or I can do that, or it might be like, hey, we got to this point. Do you think you can do this, X, Y, and Z? And then like, we'll come back and check over it before we submit it. How about that? And so being able to, work collaboratively with them, but also give them some autonomy and empowerment to kind of do things on their own. So it's kind of a back and forth volley, if you will, of kind of working collaboratively, but not doing everything for someone, and allowing them to kind of, have their autonomy there.
Sorry. I didn't mean
And
to,
I'm really jealous of those mailboxes.
I didn't mean to press ahead. I
No,
accidentally
it's
clicked.
okay. No,
I was not
it's a
meaning to shut you off at all.
It's a great service. No, it's a great service.
Unfortunately, early on, we realized that we didn't put nearly enough in. So now our system is a file cabinet.
Yeah, that's a facade. That looks really good. But for the 473 people that try to get mail at our place, it just ain't gonna work. So we literally do alphabetically in a file cabinet, but looks good on a wall right now though.
Yeah.
Well, it's
but-
and a great service for those that need that and are unstably housed.
Well, you cannot get a house or get in a house or be housed in Kentucky without a permanent address. So that's how that service started. So you are, I can't remember the name of the suite F.
Yeah, Suite F.
2516 Suite F is where your permanent address is. And I've taken people to get surgery done, and that's the address they use when they're checking into the hospital. So that's why I said I like the haircuts and the clean start there, because it's just kind of a nice little unique niche that they've got in the services that they provide.
That's wonderful. And Jeremy, at the LRCC, you have a number of supplies to keep individuals safe. I know the picture isn't clear. I'm not a photographer, but the fentanyl strips and the Narcan how do you go about them getting those supplies? Is there a process, or you have those on your wall? It's near a bathroom too.
Yeah, so I mean, we do Narcan and fentanyl test strip distribution and training of individuals. But we also know that there's some people that aren't going to go through the formal process or actually ask, or might be embarrassed, or things of that nature. And so in the bathrooms, we do have, we have sharps containers where people can get rid of, any kind of hazardous material like that. But we do just have the Narcan and the fentanyl test strips, and then in the restrooms we also have, feminine, hygiene products there as well for people to just use and take as they see fit. And so we do a little inventory each day or each evening and see what has gone out and log that and kind of just in the bathrooms there. As far as the Narcan and fentanyl test strips go, people can take those at their leisure as they need them. And then we also have a formal process, at the front desk or through our mobile units that people can be trained. And with, in there's instructions on how to use those. And those two supplies, that they're very easy to use, and there's no harm. That's the good thing about Narcan is if children or people that aren't suffering with opioid overdose ingest that or get some of that medicines in their system, it is not harmful to anyone. So that's the beauty in being able to give that out, because there are people that won't ask for it, or feel embarrassed, or, with the condoms, we have condoms in different places as well that people can just take at their leisure. Just wanting people to be safe in what they do. We know these behaviors are going to happen in the community. They do happen in the community, and just how can we increase safety and increase access and lower barriers.
Right. That's great. That's great. And then also, when I was there, you're talking about the flood damage. So I wasn't able to get a picture, inside this room, but what do you use the kids zone for?
Yeah, the Kid Zone has kind of a multi-purpose there. So I know when I was in early recovery in a new city, I was a single parent. I had a infant child, and was taking my child to meetings and different places, and I felt like it was a burden oftentimes, or had this, I just always wished, like, hey man, I really wish there was some sort of, I don't want to say childcare, because we don't do childcare. But if there was some sort of kids room or kids zone at these meetings to where other kids could play together, or if my child was starting to cry in a meeting, and I wanted to go, instead of going outside where there was lots of cigarettes being smoked and things like that tend to happen at the mutual aid meetings. I could go into this kids room, or not feel like I was like walking through this church going into a room that I wasn't supposed to go into, or what have you. And so that was part of that, is hey, let's have a room where, if people are coming to get services and they have a child, maybe their child, is a toddler or a preteen or whatever, they can go in there and play around and have a space that's like theirs and is protected. And there's an observation window on the other side. So oftentimes individuals who need supervised visits, whether that's CPS or just an agreement between partners, ex-partners, parents, co-parents, they can request that space for free. And so CPS is utilize that a lot. The START teams utilize it a lot, and there's lots of attorneys now that know that that's there, and will use that as well for supervised visits. And so the parent and child can be in there and have their intimate time, and the supervisor can be on the outside. We do have a camera in that area too, and so there is, that is being recorded while they're in there, and then they do have the observation window. But then also during those meetings, kind of what I was speaking to, kind of my personal, the part that was kind of personal to me, meetings that take place there can have a volunteer that says, hey, I'm going to volunteer to be in the kids room, and so when multiple kids come in for with their parents to the meeting, they can be in there and have some fun time, and not be in the meeting, or parents don't have to feel like they're having to give their kid their iPad or more screen time. I know that was mine. Like, I was always breaking my screen time boundaries with my son at meetings, because I was like, yep, you're going to get an hour of screen time now, because I want you to be still and in the meeting, and so I can be present. And so that's kind of the multi-purposes of the kids zone there. And when we have community meetings or other community organizations that have have space or hold space there, they'll have volunteers that utilize it for the same reasons, and kids can go in there and run around and have fun. And so there's all kinds of toys, there's books, there's baby dolls, there's pack and plays, there's bottle warmers, there's a rocking chair, and there's space there in the middle where kids can run around and play.
Great. Thank you. And at the neighborhood, you have the Drop Youth Center, which is really cool, and it's in partnership with Pathways runs it, right?
Right, and they use that tailored program, and there's a couple dozen of those centers throughout the state of Kentucky, and this is also the same place that had the pool table. I strategically go to this place last when anytime we do a tour because it's my favorite. It's the one that has all the cool stuff, you know, but despite cool, it's also just effective. So they are actually doing cooking classes in that kitchenette. Even if it's something as simple as mac and cheese that you microwave, or give me some ramen noodles like on top of the stove. They're doing simplicity, but over time, simplicity adds up. And simplicity can make a lasting difference. And so it's just purpose spaces. And listen, we were sitting here, I was on mute because I'm telling him how jealous I am because I'm a parent of an adopted child. And through the fostering process, I mean, my four-year-old was born addicted to heroin, and we went through a lot of process in his healing. And a lot of the time there was some supervised time with his parents, with his biological parents, and there weren't good options in my town for that. And so I envy that. We've had that discussion over the last couple of years. Like, I want to build a living room in our space, just a living room for the purpose of living, so that there could be some comfortable interactions with families for multiple reasons. But man, I was sitting here, I'm clapping my hands just for that kid zone for the multiple purposes. But yeah, this is the Drop Youth Center. Sorry, got on a tangent there, but I'm proud of you guys for real. But this works really well with Pathways in the Tailored program for sure. And they have counselors, caseworkers. You know, they've got a room of 8 computers, again, for that very purpose, to get kids a job and to get them even homework after school, you know, after school homework, helping and tutoring. It's just very helpful.
And I'm just going to jump in here too on this. It's something that hit when I took over. Everybody it looked like a jailer with like 60 keys. So we went to a master lock system. So all the directors they can key in anywhere. The employees can key into the building and into their assigned spaces. But at night, like the drops open later than anybody else. So they get a kid that comes in and needs a tennis shoes or needs food or whatever. They just go key into the other agencies, take what they need and leave a note saying, hey, tomorrow put this on Charity Tracker that we got a size 8 tennis shoes or whatever. So again, it was kind of crazy. And we were incredibly siloed 6-8 years ago. You know, so that's another thing. If you get a center like this, you know, do a master key system so it can flow, you know.
Right. Awesome. Yeah, thank you. Just have a couple minutes left. So I just wanted to talk about, Jeremy, your vans that you offer, your mobile vans. You've got the one that's called the Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition. And what do they do?
Yeah, so the Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition is they're a nonprofit that is kind of embedded within the LRCC now. They rent office spaces off of us, and they do a lot of Narcan training, a lot of Narcan distribution. They work with an organization I'm on their board of directors, proud to be on their board of directors, and we work with an organization out of New York City that's called Next Distro, and they mail distribute harm reduction supplies all over the nation, and they work with states or partners in states. So when people go to Next Distro and they're from Kentucky, they will then send them to us at the Kentucky Harm Reduction Coalition, and throughout the state of Kentucky, we can distribute Narcan and fentanyl test strips to agencies, individuals, anyone that really wants to have that service kind of delivered to them. We can do that through mail. But we do have, with LRCC, have a partnership with them with a MOUD expansion. And so what that looks like is we partnered up with Dr. Christopher Stewart from U of L Psychiatric Department, who has his X license or X waiver to be able to, he's also an addictionologist and runs an IOP and program over there at U of L. And so he'll come out with us a couple times a week. And when he's not with us, we have telehealth components to where there's a peer support specialist or actually 2 peer support specialists that go out with the unit, whether that's at the syringe exchange or into the homeless encampments, and we can utilize telehealth to get them in with Dr. Stewart. We're bringing some other doctors on now as this kind of expands. Getting it up and going was a little bit of a challenge with contracts and things of that nature, but the idea was to expand access to medications for opioid use disorder and really expand access to just having healthcare or a healthcare provider was part of that, or having psychiatric meds, because we are seeing, I think it's always been there, but we're seeing even more, co-occurring disorders. People are being diagnosed, or we're seeing a lot of mental health crisis or issues along with substance use. And oftentimes we know people are self-medicating. And so just having a physician and having the right people there at our side or one click away is very important. So, and we do know that a lot of times individuals at the syringe exchange, a lot of times their first shift to treatment is going to be, not always going to be in the abstinence-based treatment, or go straight to detox. And in detox, a lot of times they want to start off with medications, and that's part of their journey. And so being able to be there at the exchanges when people are ready to move into that stage of their recovery is wonderful to be able to do that. And then we have another mobile unit called our MORE unit that is in conjunction with Voices of Hope there in Lexington. And so that's something that we wrote for together. And we both have there's a unit in Lexington and a unit here in Louisville, and we go out into the community and we just engage. And so that looks like going to the encampments. It looks like setting up in parking lots, and oftentimes now partners, other agencies want to come along with, and where are you going to be next week? And now we have like set different days where there's organizations that'll come out and provide the food, and we'll grill out in the middle of a neighborhood. We'll set up shop and grill out and play some music, and people will come over and we're engaged with the community and be able to give out supplies. We have a lot of different supplies, harm reduction supplies, whether that's safer smoking kits or safer injection kits, or the fentanyl test strips, but also the underwear, the food, snacks, wound care, bug spray for people that are living in the encampments, sunscreen, just what we add to our list of things that we keep on the mobile unit. Just it seems like every month, just because somebody will ask, like, do you have like bug spray? Do you have bug spray? Like, no, we don't have bug spray. But you live outside, you need bug spray. Well, we didn't think of that, because we don't live outside, or it's been a while since I've lived outside. And so thank you for that. We will get you bug spray, or Repel, like wipes to where you can wipe your whole body down, or dog food, cat food, right? People have companions, and those companions might be the only thing in life that these individuals trust, or might be the only thing they deem that doesn't judge them. And like these companions, these animals that people have in the encampments are very, very, very important to them, just like Lulu, my dog, is important to me. And so being able to feed their dog or the cat is important as well. And so being able to get those types of items to people is very important. And that builds that relationship. And we see oftentimes being able to, be able to get folks from, an encampment to our brick and mortar, or, part of the other mobile unit is there's a peer navigator position, where an individual can drive their own car. We have, insurance built for that, where individuals will, if they need a ride to the pharmacy or to their doctor appointment, or to maybe to the LRCC, or to maybe a job interview or anywhere like that, we can be able to, we got bus passes that we're able to give them if they want to utilize that, but we can also get you there, because sometimes, you know, the bus isn't always efficient. Public transportation isn't always efficient. And so being able to get people there and get people there on time, or knowing like, hey, we've given this person bus passes before, and they still weren't making it. So there was something there. So, hey, you think you'd be willing to go to the appointment if we like came and picked you up like right here? And so being able to do that helps eliminate barriers too. But we got to build that trust. And so going out into these communities and helping increase access, and eliminating barriers is kind of what the mobile units are all about. We know that there's, you know, especially in Louisville, there's been a lot of neighborhoods that have been kind of oppressed and kind of left out, especially across the 9th Street divide there in Louisville, in the west end of Louisville, trying to just let people know that we're here, that we care, and that that we want to, you know, see other services, you know, being offered there in that community that aren't traditionally or haven't historically been offered in that area. And so we're seeing a lot more agencies coming together to come with these same type of efforts. And so it's beautiful to see the community kind of come together for that reason.
It's great meeting the client where they are. We also have on this call two individuals, Mary and Charles, that work with the Hope Mobile. Are you still on this call, Mary and Charles? They were going to talk a little bit about, in Lexington, they have the Hope Mobile outreach program that they travel to different places in the downtown Lexington area. They may have not been able to stay on the call, but again, just to let those on that are still here that this is a service that they provide in Lexington, and they go out and meet those that are unstably housed. They have resource guides, where to get food and where to get a lot of referrals for medical treatment and things like that. So it's a great organization that's doing a lot of good work in the Lexington community. We are out of time, so I'm not able to finish up with questions, but what I will do is have the Jeremy and Todd try to answer those questions, and I'll send them out in email, or I also put in a collaboration space that I can at least address those questions. So I was hoping to get to all of them. This was great. Thank you very much, Jeremy and Todd, for your time. And this information was so great to hear. And I could see the comments in the chat box. People really do appreciate that. Thank you. Just a reminder about certificate of education. If you are needing a certificate of education, or you're a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, you can click on or visit this website. And yeah, Liz just put it in the chat box, or you can scan the QR code. And this will allow you to get a certificate of attendance, or the credit if you're a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. I'll send that out to you. If you're looking for CE credits, you will, if you go to this website, CE Central, get credit, and go ahead and enter that activity code. So Liz has put that in the chat box, and then you will be able to get your certificate. If this is the first time you're using the registration for CE Central, you do have to register, but it's like under a minute. It's real brief, and it's very, very quick. And we would like your feedback from this session, and what do you want to see in future sessions? So if you wouldn't mind filling out this evaluation survey. It takes, again, less than a minute to complete, but we really do value your inputs. And just to let you know what's coming up on the horizon, for June, we'll have an on-demand video, very different, but it is geared towards attorney and judges for CLE credit, but it's going to be opened up to our whole state, not just our Wave 1 counties. And anyone can watch the video, but it is going to be geared towards the legal system and opioid epidemic, the evidence-based approaches, civil liability and criminal liability with carrying naloxone, as well well as the FDA approved medication. So we have 2 attorneys, a physician and a pharmacist presenting, and it's we just got done with the taping and recording, and it's really going to be very interesting and great session. So I hope you're able to at least view that. And then in July, we're going to have the Narcan vending machines. And we'll have a speaker from Nevada coming in who implemented those successfully in her community. Kentucky Open is every Thursday, and hope you can, there's a link in the chat box to visit and register. And then there's just the financial disclosure no one wants to read, but I have to present it here. Thank you all for being here. I'm sorry we went a few minutes over. And thank you again to our panelists who did a fabulous job in showcasing their centers. So impressive. And we hope that maybe, I know with your information, maybe that will get the people in this room started in their own communities, ways to start their own centers. So thank you very much, and have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Do you need anything? I was going to
No,
stay.
you're
I was
go-
just going to
no,
stay
no.
on in
Thank you
case
so-
anybody needed any. Wanted to
Yeah.
ask. Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank
You did a
you.
great job. Great job. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. All right.
I hope
See
you
you
get
soon.
better, feel better.
Thanks.